Good morning from Edmonton International Airport. My name is Alex, and welcome to this special trip report. Today, I'm flying up to Yellowknife, Northwest Territories with some good friends of mine on board a Canadian North Boeing 737-200. Now, I already flew on Canadian North 737-200 for the first time last year and had a fantastic trip. So, a few months ago, I was looking at some flights and found that the 737-200 was back, operating a few flights on the Edmonton to Yellowknife route, and honestly I could not pass up the chance to fly it again. Today's flight was scheduled to depart at 7:45 a.m., but was delayed by just over 2 hours to 10 a.m. instead. I checked in online, but needed a printed boarding pass, and Canadian North's customer service agents were all very welcoming. I also received a $9 meal voucher as compensation for the delay, which was very surprising. No other airline in North America, that I know of, would ever give out food vouchers for just a 2-hour delay, or anything less than a complete cancellation. That's part of the reason why I love flying with Canadian North. After passing through security and making my way to Gate 12, here is today's aircraft arriving from the hangar. Charlie Golf Oscar Papa Whiskey, a 39-year-old 737-200 Combi. I flew this exact aircraft last year on the same route, a flight that's normally operated by a 737-300. An added bonus on today's flight is that the aircraft is operating with a full passenger configuration. Most scheduled flights with the 737-200 usually have some cargo up front, so this is pretty special. This also means we'll be boarding using a jet bridge, again not a common sight at all in 2019 for a 737-200. Today, the aircraft will fly from Edmonton to Yellowknife, where we'll hop off and then continue on from Yellowknife to Norman Wells and Inuvik, before turning around to pick us up and fly back to Edmonton. Upon boarding, every passenger got a letter from Canadian North, which I'll go over once I get to my seat.
How are you?
Good, and you? Not bad.
Hey, how's it going?
For today's 90-minute flight north, I'm seated in 7A. The legroom here, as always, is wonderful. I'm 6'8", so for the average person, this is a ton of space. That letter I mentioned earlier is actually a 20% discount code that Canadian North gave to every passenger on the flight as further compensation. Again, that is shockingly good customer service, and I'm definitely going to make use of that discount. Seat 7A is located just forward of the wing, with a nice view of the Pratt & Whitney JT8D powering this aircraft, but it's not necessarily the best seat as far as engine sound goes. That being said, I'm sitting even further forward on the return leg, so keep watching for that. Without further ado, here's our departure from Edmonton, taking off from runway 12. The in-flight service today included a complimentary breakfast tray, this asparagus omelette with ham and cheese. I'll say it again, the free hot breakfast on this domestic Canadian flight? Mind-boggling, honestly. It may look pretty simple, but it smelled delicious, and was it ever tasty. Despite there being enough food for everyone, there were actually a few people who didn't want any. I have to assume they're regular commuters who aren't as blown away by the fact that we're getting a hot meal in economy class. In full passenger configuration, Canadian North 737-200s seat just 114 people in 19 spacious rows. As you can see, the overhead bins are tiny, although there is a storage compartment at the front for large carry-ons. I'll show you the seat back pocket contents on the return flight, but as we cross the 60th parallel over Great Slave Lake, here's our arrival into beautiful Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, landing on runway 34.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be landing shortly in Yellowknife. In preparation for landing, please ensure all cabin baggage and electronic devices such as laptop computers must be powered down and stowed.
Avec vos ceintures bouclées et vos bagages de cabine rangés jusqu'à l'arrêt complet de l'appareil et jusqu'à ce que les consignes...
Thank you.
Yes, Ben.
Thanks. Once again, a phenomenal flight with Canadian North. A free hot meal, plenty of space, friendly crew. It's always a pleasure to fly with them, especially on an aircraft like this. I'll save my overall thoughts for the return flight, but for now, I have about 5 hours to spend here in sunny Yellowknife. Of course, any trip to Yellowknife wouldn't be complete without a tour of Buffalo Airways. As someone who watched ice pilots religiously, for lack of a better term, it's always great to see their vintage aircraft in person. We also visited Air Tindy to get a look at some of their Dash 7s, and they very generously let us take a look around, along with a bit of airside plane spotting. That was followed by a visit to the Pilot's Monument and a literal mountain of fish and chips for dinner. It was a good day. Not long after, it was time to head back to the airport for the flight to Edmonton. Check-in was a breeze yet again, although the customer service agents recommended we go through security as soon as we could. Last time I was here, there was quite a bit of construction in the post-security area, so seating was a bit limited. Now there are more seats and a nice little place to buy some food and drink. However, with two Q400s leaving at the same time as our flight, it feels just as crowded. For now, here's our aircraft arriving from Norman Wells. My seat for this hour-and-a-half flight back to Edmonton is 4A, with an even better engine view this time. Once again, wonderful legroom, and as you can see, 4A is right next to the cargo door seal, and has two full windows that are much closer together than normal. You can really see the difference from outside, compared to the normal windows. But enough from me. Please enjoy the sounds of these JT-8Ds as we depart Yellowknife, off of runway 16.
Airplane mode.
Collage. Merci d'avoir choisi Canadian North. Nous vous souhaitons un bon vol.
On our way south, we were treated to yet another hot meal, which also came with a complimentary towel. This time it was a piping hot roast beef sandwich with cheese, and again, absolutely delicious. Canadian North has no in-flight entertainment on their 737-200s for obvious reasons, but they do supply every passenger with a lengthy literature package. Included is a pristine 737-200 safety card, a couple of suggestion forms, air sickness bags, Canadian North's in-flight magazine, and some Northern magazines for plenty of in-flight reading. Now, just a few days after my trip last year, Canadian North announced a merger with First Air, a competing northern airline that serves many of the same destinations. The federal government approved the merger a few months ago, and many of their aircraft are slowly being repainted. So, next time I fly their 737-200, it is possible that it'll be in a different livery, and I do hope they keep up their impeccable level of service. Sadly, all good things must come to an end, and we started our descent into Edmonton, landing on runway 20.
Gentlemen, welcome to Edmonton. Local time is approximately 8:40. You may now use your cell phones, provided they're on your person.
Even though this is more of an AvGeek trip report rather than reviewing an onboard product, Canadian North honestly blows me away. From complimentary hot meals to being compensated for just a 2-hour delay, for an economy class flight in 2019, Canadian North really is fantastic. They're easily one of my favorite airlines, and like I said earlier, I'm definitely going to make use of that discount. And of course, it's always a pleasure to fly the 737-200. Talking to the pilots afterwards, they said that Canadian North doesn't have any plans to retire these aircraft. It makes sense given how valuable they are in the North. For the time being, if you're an aviation enthusiast looking for a way to fly on a 737-200, I do believe that Canadian North might be your best bet. Edmonton to Yellowknife is usually the cheapest route, coming in at around $300 to $400 Canadian round trip. That said though, you only see them on this route during the summertime, but they can be booked on flights further north out of Yellowknife to places like Inuvik and Cambridge Bay. Those flights do cost quite a bit more, but you can also redeem Aeroplan points with Canadian North, but only by talking to Aeroplan over the phone. Once again, I had a fantastic time with Canadian North, and I cannot wait to fly with them again in the near future. So, that concludes this year's flight on the classic Boeing 737-200. Thank you so much for watching this trip report. Please leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.